Good afternoon, everybody. What does it really, come in our mind the moment we start thinking about market surveillance? A lot of different conflicting thoughts, right? I mean, different stakeholders. When I wear the hat of an equipment supplier, it's about alertness. It's about immediate compliance, and there's always a little bit of a different kind of a feeling. But when we go and start looking at it from a consumer's perspective, and when I'm a consumer, it's about more relaxation and relief that I'm going to get a product which is safe and which is all the things that I've actually really paid for. So, and when we go into the shoes of a regulatory body, it's about enforcing. So the intent of this presentation today is to bring all of us on the same platform. Let's understand this together, and then after we have a good understanding of the whole process about compliance, about market surveillance, then we move towards what are the challenges that we are facing, and what could be perhaps some solutions that are proposed by us. So getting into the benefits of market surveillance, very positive, constructive way of looking at market surveillance. It's first, number one, it is for all the suppliers, all the stakeholders to ensure that we are complying to the regulations. That's the number one requirement. It's for everybody to say that, yeah, we are offering products which are compliant to the rules of the land. And the second thing is it's all about safety, right? We always want to ensure that we and our near and dear ones are all using products which are safe to use, and it doesn't have any adverse impact on our health. So that's the second most important. Probably that's the core of all this. We are doing all this compliance only for consumer safety. The third gets more commercial. It's about having a level playing field. It's about fair competition. It's about ensuring that everybody offers similar kind of specifications to our customers, and we are all competing in a fair and reasonable manner. And finally, the thing about evolution, right? As we are having this market surveillance and compliance and regulations, it's all about continuously improving and taking the lessons learned, putting it back into the process, and building more robust processes, which is again for the benefit of our customers. So with that positive intent, let's move forward to the next thing to understand who are all the stakeholders in this entire process. So starting from the left, we have the regulators. We have, MOIT, we have SASO, we have MEW, we have ESMA, we have all Abu Dhabi QCC. We have all the regulators who mandate, who actually define, and they put the discipline in place, they put the process in place, and say how it has actually got to work. Then second, we have accreditation bodies. Okay, all of them they fall under the IAF, the International Accreditation Forum, and we have the likes of INAS and the GCC accreditation centers, so on and so forth. The third stakeholder in this entire process is the conformity assessment bodies. So these are the organizations with whom we work on a regular basis. Being a manufacturer from the industry, we are always in touch with them. For us, they are the go-to person. They are actually the window to the regulators and to ensure compliance. And finally, we fall into the category of economic operators, manufacturers, importers, and distributors. So that's the entire value chain that goes from an equipment supplier into the market. The entire go-to-market value chain. So once we have a clear understanding of all these stakeholders, then we can go further into market surveillance process, and let's look at how it really is laid out in the Gulf region. So we have all these countries as listed, right from UAE across over to Qatar, and each one of them has got their own regulations. Okay, we have ESMA, we have SASO, and we have PAI. These are the things that we need to comply. Now, bear in mind, this is all from a manufacturer's perspective, right? We are looking at it like this from our side. Being economic operators at the bottom, we see notified bodies, and then there are regulations on top of them. There are other stakeholders, but this is our perspective. This is what is visible to us. Now, each one of these regulatory bodies define, mandate, regulations. So you have the MEPS, minimum energy efficiency standards, you have safety, compliance on EMC, and then you have ROHS. So this three things takes care of energy efficiency, sustainability requirements, any kind of hazardous equipment, and ensure safety of the users. So that's what it is all about. Moving forward, how is this actually getting enforced? So the notified bodies, they are assisting in sometimes getting the tests done. Further, they accept the test reports which are as per the standard requirements, and they also certify products as per the regulations. So that's pretty much a nutshell, a summary of how these notified bodies, from our perspective, we look at it. And finally, from the economic manufacturers, the moment you have a regulation, we start going back to our roadmaps. We want to comply, and we go back to the design table, and we start ensuring that the product meets or exceeds the requirements of every regulation that is written at the top. Okay. Moving forward, let's look at these four stakeholders one by one, and let's look at regulators, right? And this is a brief summary. They do much beyond this. I mean, they're actually safeguarding the interests of the consumer and the entire industry by mandating, the regulations. They write down the regulations after consulting all the global experts that we spoke about in the past. We heard them. And then they want, in order to ensure compliance, further you have, they define the process of surveillance. They ensure that the surveillance process is completely enforced. They monitor the appointed compliance based on standards, and there are very clearly well-defined global international standards about following this. Moving further, they ensure that in case if compliance is not met, then what is it that happens? And then there are labs which are also into their purview. They look to make sure that the labs are certified as per the global standards. So this is pretty much what it is. And finally, it comes to the a point where the equipment in the field are audited. So we spoke about the first stakeholder, which is the regulator. Now moving on to the other three, summarized in one slide. So their key responsibilities, starting from accreditation bodies, is to ensure that whatever is stipulated, whatever is regulated by the regulatory bodies, the compliance is met. Okay, and there are the IEC 17011 standards as per ILAC, and then you have the IEC 17025. That's pretty much ensuring compliance, maintaining compliance continuously year on year, to serve the industry. Then you have conformity assessment bodies. This is again our point of contact. They are extremely diligent in ensuring that the things that are there do not deviate. The IEC 17065, the test labs, and the test reports and the certificates that are processed on behalf of the regulators are all compliant, and they conform to the requirements with all the necessary details. Whether it's the kilowatt per ton, whether it is the SCER, or depending upon the individual country-specific regulations, all the conformity assessment bodies ensure compliance. Then finally, what is the responsibility of the economic operators? So we as manufacturers, our job is to make sure, of course, to manufacture products which comply, and they meet the required standards for every country. But we also have a responsibility to ensure that whenever there is a requirement of an audit or for a test, we are there to give the necessary samples for the same. So once we have a clear understanding about the roles and responsibilities of all the stakeholders, we go into the enforcement process. And we just sat and thought, what are the key things that all these four stakeholders together are doing? Okay, so this is now going one step deeper into the enforcement. The first and foremost is the audits, right? When you look into audits, they are complied entirely as per the regulatory guidelines. They could be random or they could be targeted. When we say targeted, it goes like if a supplier has got a history of non-compliance, then you want to go further deeper and say, okay, I want to check more samples or check specific samples from a lot and ensure that those products also pass. Clarity on samples, where it is going to be there, whether it can be picked up from the market, whether it can be picked up from the ports, wherever. The entire point from which the whole process is going to be carried out, that's where the audits all get defined. Then the next thing which is very important is import monitoring, right? So if we are able to have a very robust process of importing the right products into the country, which is what we say as border control for importing. And if this particular system is so strong that it can monitor, it can correlate, and it can derive historical data, and it is intelligent enough so it is able to ensure that continuity of business, or it can ensure that if anything is not working properly, it can stop the entire thing. So the whole process, that's what we say is it's got all the necessary functions to work in a very harmonized manner about imports. Now just imagine a situation that we have products coming in from, say, Dubai, it enters, and you're not able to pass the import requirements. But if the same product comes in from maybe some other emirate. So that's what, to have this information and border control is so important. Let's imagine another situation in which you have a product which is brought in for re-exports, but later on you find that particular product into the market. So this is the kind of things about having a strong and robust process of import monitoring, that's what plays. Okay? Third is the enforcement. Now what happens if the product fails? That's more about the stick part of it. Is what are the various measures that can happen? It can be product recall, it's monetary penalties, it could be forfeiture, or it could be eventually maybe even revocation of certification, that you are barred from selling that particular product due to various reasons. So that's where we have the more about the stricter aspect of non-compliance and getting products into the market which are not compliant, basically. So finally, all these things we saw all the countries working across the Gulf, and there is a very important need with all these regulations for the same products happening across, that there is information sharing, right? If a product passes the test and audit over here in UAE, and if the same sample, for example, is picked up in a similar market, specifications like Oman or Bahrain, the test report of UAE should hold good. So that's what we call in terms of information sharing, so that we are efficient. The cost of these audits doesn't come cheap, because eventually all these audits are passed back in some shape or form back to the customer. It's always a cost to the organization. It's not coming in free that, okay, it's going out somewhere else. So that's where the importance of information sharing in a very harmonized manner between various markets. Then, if, for example, if one of the countries you find that the technology has failed, then it's important to share the best business practice. So with that knowledge, I think let's go into the various challenges that the industry is facing. So for sure, there is a requirement of a systematic market surveillance process. So we have to have interconnectivity, a very harmonized and robust process in which border regulations, transparency of regulations, increased awareness of consumers, and the whole thing about visibility of all these things is so important, the visibility of the regulatory bodies. So this is building a strong process between all these interconnecting things which impact our business. We have noticed that there are inconsistencies in regulatory requirements. Sometimes it is gross, sometimes it is net. It's confusing for the supplier to manufacture products with which standard do we do. There is a commercial impact. If the market is too small, then you end up not probably developing the right kind of product for that market. If the market is big enough, you may target some other market, but you might lose. So in the process, you're not really able to serve your customers who deserve the best possible technology from the supplier. So that's where consistencies and harmonization is really so important for the industry. Moving forward, suppose there is a change in the regulatory requirement and some clarity comes in. The manufacturer requires enough time for this transition. And that's where, number one, the standards needs to be aligned with Eurovent standards, or depending upon the nature of product, with AHRI standards. So there's an international standard reference which has been built up with a lot of knowledge and expertise is referred to. Then we have some concerns. I mean, this is purely, I'm saying it on behalf of our organization, that we have seen that market surveillance test in a competitor's lab, always there's a sense of discomfort, because the product which is developed over 2 years, finally it's ending up in the surveillance process in a competitor's lab, where right from the tolerance to which it is built to everything is actually known to your competitor. So we have to find out better ways of doing this entire surveillance. Perhaps we have to think through this entire process. Investment in independent labs could be perhaps one solution. And perhaps, the local regulatory bodies guarantee business to organizations like UL, saying, okay, we are going to do all the surveillance over here, which is an incentive for them to invest in labs. So these are different kinds of models that we can look to. And then when you have a surveillance, there should be clarity in the appeal process. We should know exactly what's the whole thing, that there should be a technical representative from the supplier going into the lab, and they should be in a position to appeal and say, hey, this is how the quantity of refrigerant was there as per the design, whereas it is tested like this. So let's have let's level it up and make sure that the tests are carried out to the satisfaction of both. So that's what we call as an appeal process. We should have more clarity. It's on the entire product range which qualifies for surveillance, whether specials are defined separately, standards are defined separately, and most important thing is, I would say, more and more transparencies and following international standards. So one of the ways of doing this is proficiency testing, which means you take 2 or 3 labs and you correlate the data and you just find out. That's one of the ways of doing it. So with this, I have actually listed down all the challenges and also proposed all the recommendations that we believe could work. But one thing I would like to say is this is a great opportunity on the positive note. It's a great opportunity in the sense that we can build a process which can be best in class worldwide. We can learn from the best practices globally and build a process of market surveillance in the GCC area, which can take care of everything. We have the necessary expertise in the industry, we have the necessary associations, we have people, and we can all together collaborate and build it. And if not now, then when are we going to do it? This is the business best possible time. GCC is growing, the market is booming. Again, all set for this thing, and all of us are all here together. So, and as an association, as a team, all of us can work together and put in our best thoughts together. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation.